Today's devotion comes from a book entitled Telling the Truth by one of my favorite authors, Frederick Buechner. There would be a strong argument for saying that much of the most powerful preaching of our time is the preaching of the poets, playwrights, and novelists, because it is often they, better than the rest of us, who speak with awful honesty about the absence of God in the world and about the storm of God's absence, both without and within, which, because it is unendurable, unlivable, drives us to look for God in the eye of the storm. I think of King Lear, especially with its tragic vision of a world in which the good and the bad alike go down to dusty, and it would seem, equally meaningless death, with no God to intervene on their behalf. And yet its vision is of a world in which the naked and helpless ones, the victim and the fools, become at least truly alive before they die, and thus touch, however briefly, on something that lies beyond the power of death. It is the worldly ones, the ones wise as the world understands wisdom and strength, in the way the world understands strength, who are utterly doomed. This is so much the central paradox of Lear that the whole play can be read as a gloss, if not a homily, on the passage in 1 Corinthians where Paul expresses the same paradox in almost the same terms by writing, God chose what is foolish in the world to shame the wise. God chose what is weak in the world to shame the strong. God chose what is low and despised in the world, even things that are not, to bring to nothing the things that are. 1 Corinthians 1:27 through 28. Thus pointing out, both Paul and Shakespeare, that there is an apparent emptiness to the world, and yet somehow God still belongs there. And how in the emptiness we can start to hear that still small voice that another prophet of God spoke of. The brothers Karamazov also tells the story. When the body of Alyosha's beloved father Zosima begins to stink of death, instead of giving off the fragrance that the dead body of a saint is supposed to give off, in that very moment, he sees the world as if it has been abandoned by God. And then suddenly he finds the world so aflame with God that he rushes out of the chapel where the body lies and begins to kiss the earth with his shaggy face. In spite of everything, God still is. It's those last words that are the message I cling to sometimes. In spite of everything, God still is. May that be a good thought for you today.